Hello everyone and welcome back. We're almost at the end of the first week of the league, so I wanted to give you a quick update on this character. And what better way to do that than to run my first level 12 unidentified map. When it loads. Okay, let's give it a go. That's going to slow me down massively. So the character's doing pretty well. It's freezing most bosses. Okay, let's try the trial. These can be incredibly rippy. I tend to go Ruin because they're not very dangerous. Well, Ruin isn't very dangerous a mechanic. But most of the stuff here is frozen solid. We'll go one more, I think.
Ruin's burden weighs twice as heavy.
So it's pretty safe for the most part.
Perhaps you don't understand the rules.
That mechanic is evil, and the problem is the moment my minions go down, I lose all my defenses. Now they do recast after 4 seconds, but that's not normally enough time. So I probably need to keep a better eye on those things. But for the rest of the map content, including the boss, I think this will do absolutely fine. Now, I've got no idea what's on this map is the other problem. One of the reasons I can run most maps is that we are reflect immune because of the ascendancy. So you can see it clears nice and quick. I'm also toying with the idea, and I've actually bought a gem that will allow this to not penetrate enemies. So instead, I can chain it. Now that's going to be less boss damage, but it should mean the clear is a lot safer. And in fairness, the biggest threat to this build is really the mobs. The bosses don't do an awful lot of damage because they're normally pretty frozen. And once you've been running for a bit, the area of effect on this has shrunk to a little beam. It spreads out whenever we used Flame Dash. But it's pretty strong. There's the boss. Alright, let's see if we can freeze a solid, hopefully. I don't like this boss. Okay, the key thing here when you're fighting is to drop down the... there she is. Drop down that, and then hammer her. If she's not frozen, she's slow to... mana. I mean, oh dear. Let's grab that. Is that her? That wasn't her. Some ghost version. She's going, she's going, she's going. Yeah, don't underestimate the power of the resistance drop off this thing. She's down. So, how are we doing? The key thing we're doing is these cluster jewels. These things were expensive. I paid 40 for one and 70 for the other. This middle one I crafted. It's pretty woeful. That doesn't do enough for us, so I didn't put it on. I want to upgrade this to at least a 2 that's usable. What these do is they give us increased cast speed, increased critical strike chance, and 5% increased movement speed if we've dealt a critical strike recently. And we have one of those on each. And then on each one we have pressure points, which gives us... Critical strikes have a 5% chance to deal double damage, so add those two together, you get 10%, 30% increased critical strike chance, so that's 60% in total. And then each of the nodes gives us 15% increased crit. And that's because we don't get an awful lot of crit on the tree. We get these nodes here, and we get these nodes here, but beyond that, there's not an awful lot. Doriani's lesson, very, very important. We're trying to get leech, so 0.2% of elemental damage leech's life is cool. We get another 0.2 off here, so that's 0.4. And then my boots have a roll from the lab of 0.6 of damage leeched as life. So that's a total of 1% of damage dealt we leech back. I'm not 100% happy with this pathing, but nothing else seems to work as well. I was thinking of maybe coming up there, and getting rid of this middle section, but it just doesn't save the points that you'd spend getting there otherwise. So what I want to do long term, I got this on my amulet purely to just get something on the amulet. And it was dead cheap. I think it's, yeah, a brown, an orange, and a blue. What I want to do long term is get this node, Constitution. It's really expensive. It's 2 golds and a silver. And golds are about an X piece. Once we've got that, I can roll this life off here. Maybe knock this life off here and then go for another one of these out of this node here. The other thing we haven't got yet is the Anima Stone for the 5th Golem. They're currently about 3x. I'm hoping they drop to below an X. They normally do about 2 weeks into the league. I'm not sure I want to wait that long, but currency's a bit tight at the moment. In total, I've spent about 170 chaos on this build, so it's about 1.5x, 1.75x. And I haven't dropped a single X. I've been selling jewelers and fusings to get chaos. I've currently got 50 chaos in the bank. Alchemies are holding. And my map base has started to increase quite nicely. And we've got 12 watchstones. If we look at gem links, we're now Freezing Pulse, Spell Echo, Hypothermia. Now what Hypothermia does, it gives us 39% more damage against people that are chilled, which is practically everybody. People will be chilled off Frost Bomb, so everyone's going to get full damage. It doesn't have to wait for my skill to hit the first time. Controlled Destruction, Pinpoint, that's what gives us the massive number of projectiles, which then shrinks down as we use it. And then Inspiration for crit and elemental damage. I think we're currently doing, according to Path of Building, about 2.5 million DPS. I managed to get a Stygian Vice, which isn't that bad. The helmet's pretty good. All the items I've got, I crafted. So these 2 ones, I either crafted or I dropped this way and then changed them. So that's got +1 to cold spells. This one has +1 to cold spells. I want another +1 to cold spells on my amulet for the endgame amulet. Maybe +1 to intelligence gems as well, but that's a bloody expensive roll. The boots has a really nice life roll and a full movement speed. I actually bought those. That's the only item on this build that I didn't craft or drop, which is why the build cost isn't that expensive yet. And then I managed to get some decent resistances on a pair of gripped gloves, so I'm just using these for the increased projectile damage. They're probably not optimal long term. We probably want spell damage or something, but what else to cover? We're using Blood Rage now to generate frenzy charges, and it gives us cast speed. It's pretty nice. Now the Orb of Storms I'm not happy with. I think either I'm going to change this to a brand or try and get a ring that can do the same thing. So at the moment we throw down Orb of Storms and that applies Frostbite to everyone in the area. But it's fiddly because when you drop it, it drops at your feet. So I want to be at a distance when I'm fighting people so they can't get really close to me. And then these rings, I was lucky with that one. It's a pretty good ring. This one is not bad at all actually. I'm doing pretty good for gear drops, just not currency drops. We completed the last Ascendancy and we got Exposure. So what happens is when we drop down Frost Bomb, it applies an extra -25 exposure to the enemy. And also gives us regenerate 1% of mana per second if you've inflicted exposure recently. Now I don't like using mana flasks as you know, but there's currently no way around it. I run out of mana on sustained fights. I think it's going to scale really well into endgame maps. My big concern is the league mechanic. I'm hoping the balance changes make them a little bit easier, because if you get the tanky monsters, I really struggle, because my freeze is based on the amount of health they've got. I was using Immortal Call with caster and damage taken. I'm now using Steel Skin. That allows us to take a total of 1,946 damage on top of our life. So it gives us an effective life pool of over 6k. Almost 7k actually. If we're taking elemental damage, we've got an extra 2,550 off the Primal Aegis. So that gives us a massive hit point pool against most enemies that deal elemental damage, which is almost like 10k. It's ridiculous. And this does recycle rather quickly. If you get out of combat for a couple of seconds, this is back up to full. Now, one thing I'm just going to mention, because someone didn't know, if you're struggling to get the trials, you can now put these in a map device to get a random trial. I thought everyone knew about it. Someone in my guild didn't, so I just thought I'd share that. The only other thing is I've started doing the Pantheons, so this Pantheon's been upgraded to have the 10% chance to avoid projectiles. What I'm looking to do is get the 5th Golem, and then I think I'm going to make the build guide, because with the 5th Golem it's going to be so much more powerful. Biggest weakness is losing these Golems, so I may look at getting regen on these Golems. Over here, it's pathing way out of my way, but we may have to do it, because then we can come up here and get regen 1% of life per second, and minions regenerate 1% of life per second. So the big thing the Golem gives us is the Stone Golem, with all the buffs from the other Golems, gives us 457.2 life regen per second, which is about a third of a flask. It's not to be sniffed at. And that's it. We'll leave this one here. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. You've been watching Altec 2K. Thank you for watching.